So, hello, welcome to the Soap Box podcast. I'm Matt.
I'm Ben.
And today we're talking about JRPGs, Japanese Roleplaying Games.
Which is a subject that probably I don't feel super educated on.
No, me neither.
But I've played a couple of games.
Well, Pokemon is probably the biggest one that I can think of.
Yeah,
So you got Pokemon, and
that's not a typical JRPG, is it?
I don't know. It fits a lot of them, but it's its own distinct thing.
It is very different.
We'd say Pokemon, the biggest JRPG is Final Fantasy, I'd say.
Yeah,
and it's very much defining. So I'd say I haven't played many, if at all any, other than Pokemon and a little bit Final Fantasy. Undertale, I've mentioned before. I've played a bit of that, and I've seen a bit of playthrough, but I've not played through the whole game. I'd say Chrono Trigger is one. Should have mentioned that in the soundtrack video. Chrono Trigger's got really good music in it. So does Super Mario RPG.
Ooh.
That's got a really good soundtrack. But there's so many JRPGs.
There are. I mean, for me, one of the biggest ones that I've played as of late was Persona 5.
Okay, yeah.
Which I think that is one of the first ones to kind of like be another breakthrough to the kind of Western market.
It's quite distinct as well. It
is
because this is my criticism for what I have seen. The reason I don't buy JRPGs basically is I'll look at the back of the box or the page on Steam or whatever, and it's they all look like they could just be reskins of the same thing. Like, I feel like you look at Final Fantasy and you could pick 6 different Final Fantasy games.
Yeah.
And the story's a bit different, obviously, but it doesn't grip me enough for me to go, yeah, that's what I'll play through all of that.
Yeah.
And I think maybe it's the turn-based combat that does it. I prefer live combat, because I have played a lot of MMOs. I've played a lot of WoW, Guild Wars. I played a bit of the Final Fantasy 14, the MMO, for a few levels just to try it out. And they all have, like, sort of turn-based. It's live turn actions. Yeah. And in Pokemon, that sort of sitting, strategizing, I like it, but I prefer, I prefer a fight like in Skyrim or in a GTA game or something like that.
I didn't even think about the fact that like Pokemon is that same sort of
turn-based it's turn-based, game. Yeah.
Ah, they fooled me, man.
Yeah, it's a JRPG. Love Pokemon. It's Japanese and it's got turn-based combat.
Damn it, you're right.
But I think that's why I prefer Zelda, because it's still like a sort of JRPG, but it's live combat, and I really like that element of.
I like live combat a lot. For some reason, I don't feel like live combat would work as well in a Pokemon game. There's lots of varieties of Pokemon games. There've been more that have kind of come out in later years and different things like that, and there's quite a few that have different things, but I don't know. I feel very much comfortable in my bubble with the Pokemon games I have.
I'm a bit I don't know what the word would be other than uneducated to be sort of talking about this, but I know the new Final Fantasy, I'm pretty sure it had the combat system 15. I think this will be new when I say new. It is still turn based, but you've got it's like live combat, but you've got to select the menus whilst moving around and things like that and fighting. So you have like an initiative order.
Yeah, I saw
but it's
those,
all sort of live.
Yeah, I saw those announcements.
I
saw those announcements in E3 as well. If that's kind of where you're basing that.
Well, I think that would be good for Pokemon. So Pokemon all have 4 moves, right? So say if you were playing Pokemon on a DS, you've got A, B, X, Y, right? Yeah. It could show in the bottom corner, and it could assign A, B, X, Y. Each one of them is a move, right?
Yeah.
Then you could have, like, I don't know, if you want to go into your bag, you could auto-select an item in your bag as, like, left bumper, right bumper, something like that.
Yeah.
You can move around and everything. So you could have a fight where you're flying around, running around, and then to use your moves, you've got, like, a certain amount of charges or something like that.
Yeah.
I think that would be an interesting take on the Pokemon combat to freshen it up, maybe. But I don't know if it would go well in a mainstream one because it's
interesting
so much
that you should say that, because Pokemon Masters,
that
we briefly mentioned in the last episode,
actually
has that style
of
combat. Is that
how it works?
Yeah.
Right, okay.
So essentially Pokemon Masters is this new game. It's just been released here as of yesterday, as of time of recording this. But essentially, what is happening in it is you're landing on this island called Paseo, which is an artificial island. It's completely man-made, but it's where they're holding this new tournament called the PML. And the PML is this massive Pokemon Masters League.
Yeah, it's all the big players basically come to play.
Yeah, nostalgia's going to come into it. You're in teams of 3. Yeah, essentially, instead of going around catching Pokemon as you are in the classic games, you're going around and you're recruiting other trainers to join on your team.
Right. Okay.
So you end up with a bank of lots of trainers, of which they call kind of sync pairs. So sync pairs are one trainer and one Pokemon, and they just stay consistently as one trainer and one Pokemon. That's how it is. If that Pokemon has evolutions that they can go through, you can progress them to a certain level and evolve them.
Right.
So the Pokemon can get stronger, the pairs can get stronger. Every single one of them can level up, which is very, very cool, and I like that kind of factor. But then you take them into battle with you in 3x3 pairs. So if it says that your opponent's weaknesses are ground type and electric, obviously you'll go to your Pokemon and you'll pick the ones that are best suited for that battle.
Yeah.
And so in it, you're able to pick out some of your partners, pick out the sync pairs, and then go into the battle. But like we were talking about, that initiative kind of based thing, it is, you have a certain amount of charges. Each of your Pokemon have moves. Your trainers also have kind of like moves that they can use, which buffer or bolster their Pokemon. And then you're just kind of trying to do it tactically.
So Game Freak, if you're listening to this, I've got no idea about game design, but you should probably hire me on your team, because I've pretty much just invented one of the the key strategy points of playing Pokemon in a new way. Wow. Imagine that.
Yeah, but that's definitely not going to be incorporated into Pokemon Sword and Shield, because we've already seen the trailers for that.
Yeah. But it's strange, because I said I wasn't the biggest fan of turn-based, but then there's a big split between Western RPGs anyway. Yeah. So you've got games like Skyrim, Fable, Witcher, you've got Dragon's Dogma, and they all have live combat, right? Mm-hmm. But then I quite like the old Neverwinter games, and you've got Divinity Original Sin, 1 and 2, those are good ones. And I'm trying to think of another one, but they are turn-based combat. Mm-hmm. And yet I've played through them. I've got like hundreds of hours on, like, spread across. And yet, even though that's turn-based, I don't know what it is. There's just something about the JRPG that doesn't grasp me.
Do you know what I think? Because I'm trying to think about what the difference is between JRPGs and RPGs in a Western kind of sense.
Yeah.
And I don't want to say, but I feel like it is. Like, I think JRPGs are very much focused on the story that they're trying to tell. They go into it, they make a story and try and craft a game around it.
Right, it's railroading then. Is that what you're sort of saying? It's a railroaded story. So you
a little
there's
bit.
There's not much diverging from it, you see. Yeah. In terms of Western games, we've seen a lot more in recent years. A lot where they kind of like open world has become so much more popular. Alternate endings and things like that. It's crazy.
And that's started to seep into some JRPGs in terms of Breath of the Wind, Zelda, or Breath of the Wild. Sorry. Yeah. Okay. And then also the new Pokemon games, there's going to be these open world spaces where you can kind of go around and explore. But in terms of most JRPG games, it's a lot of cutscenes. There's a lot of kind of story based game things, and when you get to the end, there's obviously kind of this one kind of laid out ending which you're kind of approaching. Throughout the game, you have a lot of freedom and flexibility to be able to improve your character in special ways. In Persona 5, when you think about it, you can play, because essentially Persona 5, you're playing within two different realms. You're playing within like this dream world and then also the real world. And so you're a student who's going through school, you're building relationships, you're getting a part-time job if you want to.
Persona 5's got them like spirits and things like that.
It does. Right? Yeah, personas is what they refer to them as. Right. But yeah, it's same sort of thing. And so in that, you're playing through, you can be the student and you can do all those things in the real world aspect, and then those things affect the things that happen in the dream world.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of freedom and flexibility on the way, but it is all about the story. It's all about the progression of telling you, okay, this is why this person was, an evil character, and now we need to take him down and defeat him as a team, and there's unity that we need to build, and et cetera, et cetera. I think with Western games, I think it is still story driven, but I don't think it's as heavily reliant on the story. I don't think it's centered on the story.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. I can see that. Although, I don't know. Like, The Witcher, you play through The Witcher, and it is... The reason you do everything is that, in that, is to find Ciri. And that's the core of the story.
The Witcher is based on books, though.
Yeah, I suppose so. Yeah.
So there's already a story that was there. So that was something that they were building a game. They decided, you know what, this is great. I want to build a game.
They just use elements from the book. So
and we'll use the story. The game. And that's why there's multiple different endings that you can come to.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't have enough experience with lots of different JRPGs. Yeah. But as far as I'm aware, Kingdom Hearts, I don't think there's alternate endings.
No.
Persona 5, I don't feel like there's alternate endings. I feel like when you fail at a mission, you need to go back and you need to play through it again to be able to get successfully through it. So it's not as flexible in that way.
Yeah.
You need to drive the story forward to where they want it to go, but how you get there is completely your choice. In terms of Western games and things like The Witcher, exactly like you're saying, you have the choice in what you're doing along the way, and what you do along the way affects where the story goes.
Yeah.
So for us, I think they're a lot more based around these kind of choices and how it gets to a certain ending.
Develop things.
And there's lots of games like that
you quite like Fable, don't you? And the whole thing of Fable is, are you going to be good or bad?
Yeah. I almost bought an Xbox just because I wanted to play Fable. Really? When I was a kid, I've always been a PlayStation person. But when I was younger, I went to a friend's house and they had Fable. I think it was the first one that was there, and we played through it. And I remember playing through it for hours and just being sat there and loving every second of it. And I was like, there's no other games that I'm like committed to on Xbox. There's lots of ones that are PlayStation exclusives. Yeah. But so I would buy an Xbox just for that.
Fable is only on Xbox then? I thought it was on both, right?
Yeah, no.
It's on PC though, isn't it?
It has come to PC, yeah.
Right, I was going to say you could try that out.
Yeah, I'm certainly thinking about it. But I mean, I now actually have like a little bundle of Xbox games in my house.
Oh no.
I don't know where they're coming from.
Or...
I think it's all 360.
You don't know where they're coming from. What's that supposed to mean?
I don't know. You just accumulate things through your life, man. You do. Honestly, I used to live in a flat down in London, okay? And when I was living there, we were just kind of going through like the wardrobes, the drawers and things that were in there because we just moved in.
Yeah.
And we found this like package that was in there, and the name was kind of scraped off and the like address was scraped off, but it was a package that was in there that was still sealed and hadn't been opened. Now, I know for a fact no one that we didn't know lived in that flat for at least maybe like a year or 2 years before. So this package had to be there forever, or it had to come to one of the people that was living before there, and there was no return address details. So what I did next may have been illegal.
Oh no.
But I opened the package and inside was Watch Dogs for PlayStation 4. And I was like, what? This is crazy. But like, I had a PS4, so...
You didn't ask around?
I hung on to it. I asked around the people that lived there that were right before me, and no one knew anything of it.
Oh, it could have been someone down the hall.
Nah, man. Why? Why would it have been?
It
was definitely there for a long time.
Yeah.
It had been sat in a drawer for ages, and the information was all gone from off the front of it. So... yes, in that instance, just accumulated this thing.
Yeah.
And then, like, I've had friends who, you know, sell a console or sell these things, and then they're just like, oh, I still have these things, do you want them? And yeah, so I've got a little stack of Xbox 360 games that I might use at some point. Just in the back of a wardrobe crammed in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bumming out.
Yeah.
That's crazy. See, I wish I had things like that. I'll never accumulate anything other than DVDs. I get a lot of
one house
DVDs.
your whole life.
Yeah,
move around.
True. Yeah.
Get some experiences, man.
I know.
Go America for a year.
Yeah. Can't wait. So one thing I was wanting to talk about, as we've spent about a couple of minutes talking about RPGs and things.
Yeah.
And we were saying how different the like choice matters and things like that are. I think it'd be quite interesting to have in a game an option where... So I was playing Spider-Man recently, and during a boss fight I died, right?
The new PlayStation Spider-Man.
Yeah. And I died, and I was like, oh man, can't believe I died, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And then it kind of occurred to me, I was like, wait a minute. What if, like, Spider-Man actually lost this fight? Like, he's trying to prevent something in the game.
Yeah.
You know, I won't spoil anything, but like with that, like what would happen if they made the game and there was 2 ways to play, right?
Yeah.
You had like 3 shots at doing a boss. If you died 3 times, then it counted as a fail, right? So then the story progresses in a different way. So say if Spider-Man's fighting, I don't know, you know, the Vulture, and the Vulture's captured MJ, let's say.
Yeah, okay.
And then you've got to try and stop him. If you stop him in that fight, you win the boss fight, you get MJ back, everything's fine.
Yeah.
You defeat him, he goes to prison. But then say if you're fighting him and you lose 3 times, he gets away with MJ. That could propel the plot completely different. They could have so many different things where different interactions don't happen.
Yeah.
Like how crazy would that be? Because I know in The Witcher, for a fact, if you don't interact with certain people, like, well, it's an old game now, so I will drop spoilers. There's a bit where you can talk to Dijkstra, and you can take out Radovid, right, with Dijkstra and Vernon Roach. But you can also just not do that. You can just ignore it.
Yeah,
and if you do, Radovid takes over in the end and like kills off like half the.
There's lots of things that happen like that throughout The Witcher. There's one instance where you're meant to go and save like some children from this witch that's in the hut. And if you don't have a certain interaction before another interaction, then that witch will end up like killing the kids and disappear. Or if you have another one,
it's the Baron's wife. There's a few different things.
Yeah, that's
she's in the bog, and you can choose to. She gets turned into a water hag, and you can choose to kill her because now she's a crazy hag. You can send her away with him, but like the options are pretty bad. If you kill her, he ends up hanging himself.
Yes.
If you send her away, I think she ends up killing him or something like that because she's a crazy water hag.
Yeah, it's all. And it's like, it's not
why don't more games do things like that now? I feel like there's a lot of time and effort that went into creating the masterpiece that is The Witcher, but I would love it. I would love it if there was, say, a Spider-Man game with alternate endings like that.
But I can kind of feel for like, you know, the game developers in that instance. For the game developers that designed The Witcher, okay, hats off, incredible job, well done. But in terms of all the hard work that they put in, there's entire portions of that game that are entirely avoidable, and you can just progress through the game without ever having touched huge segments that are in there.
Yeah, my first playthrough, that's what happened with me. I just did the story for so long, and then I was like, what the hell? Like, there's this and this.
Yeah.
And so I went, and then my second playthrough, I just explored. I did every quest to every zone.
Yeah,
and I just did everything. And then I did the story missions. And
some people will play through it like you do and go back and have that replayability in the game.
I'm on my third or fourth playthrough now. Like,
there you go. That's incredible. But like for others, they'll play through it once, and if they miss things, they miss things. The game developers that spent all those hours crafting certain parts of a game, it was for naught for those people. You know, and so I think there are probably some game developers, some game design companies that are just like, well, why would we make all this dead information? You know, a lot of times it won't get used, but it just comes down to what they kind of wanna make, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think it is incredible, and technology is definitely going the way that it needs to for that sort of thing.
Yeah.
On the topic of technology for things like that, earlier today I was showing my wife the slow-mo guys. Have you ever watched them on YouTube?
Yeah. Oh, I used to watch them ages ago.
I love them. Okay, they're incredible.
They've been doing YouTube vids for
years
like
and years and years and
now,
years.
man.
Yeah. They had a flashback that was like 6 years ago. We did this, and you know, they've been all over YouTube forever. But I was watching a video of them recording the speed of light.
Right.
Okay, and so what they did, they had to go to, I think it was Caltech, University of California Information Technology or whatever, that Institute of Technology. They went there because they have a massive camera that has the potential to record at incredible speed.
Yeah.
Whereas the slow-mo guys, the fastest I think they ever did it was maybe 250,000 frames per second is what they said.
Slowest.
Yeah. Well, the fastest frame rate they were ever able to catch was 250,000 frames per second, which
mental.
is incredible when you think about it. Okay, in a movie, the typical frame rate is 12 frames per second.
Really, in films, not 30.
It might have gone up to 30. Yeah, probably.
TV's usually 30. Now they've gone up to 60. A lot of filming in 60 FPS now.
I'm just living in the dark ages. I know at one point things were 12 frames per second. You know,
that's probably film, maybe.
Probably, yeah. But like we've obviously progressed past that. You're probably right with 30 or maybe even 60, depending on where the graphics are today.
Now,
but for that to be the case and for that to cover out, an hour and a half average movie, that's a lot of frames. But it's not quite the amount that they catch over the course of a minute when they're recording 250,000 frames per second. And what they did was they went to this CalSec and they have a massive camera that is able to record at 10 trillion frames per second.
Now I've done a photography course and that's a lot. That's a lot of frames.
Ridiculous.
Because I can only get up to a couple of hundred. On my little Pentax, I think I can get like...
And that's impressive that a Pentax can do that. A couple hundred frames a second.
Well, yeah, 1,000... pretty fast.
Even still, that is an awful lot. I mean, for that much data to be recorded, obviously every single one of those frames is an image and it's all compiled together and it's all put together. For 1 second's worth of information, to have 10 trillion images... Yeah. That is a huge amount of data, a huge amount of information being stored for 1 second's worth of video.
Although I suppose that's just how we perceive things.
It is, yeah.
1 second for a human is completely different for whatever else.
Yeah, certainly. But I mean, technology-wise, I think things are definitely still advancing at a good clip. With that 10 trillion frames per second, the camera that they had that could do that was still massive, and it was the size of a small room. And I mean, back in the day, obviously, the first computer did take up a massive room. Yeah. Now we have computers on our phones and on much smaller technology, on watches.
Watches.
Yeah, exactly. And so everything is advanced. But even still, 10 trillion frames in a second. The camera that needs to store that information still takes up the size of a room right now. But it's, it goes...
Does that relate into games in any way, or...?
Yes.
How?
Because
I'm looping it back right.
In order to make the games that have all the different information and all the different storage for every single eventuality, if you want to see a Spider-Man game come out where if you save MJ, then this is how the things progress. If you don't, this is how they progress. For someone to make a game that has so many eventualities and then actually store all of that information, the game has to... sometimes the game cards don't even, have the right amount of size. Sometimes the Blu-ray discs don't have the right amount of storage.
A lot of Rockstar games, you've got to install first disc and then you've got to play disc, which is crazy.
Yeah.
But then, that
is a ton of information. But as technology advances, more and more information can be saved on a single disc. And as that happens, we will see people who, are similar-minded but maybe a little bit more technically skilled and will decide to do something like that.
Yeah.
We won't just watch that Bandersnatch on Netflix and think about those eventualities. It will be a thing.
Yeah. Something else.
Yeah.
The future.
The future.
Thank you very much for listening to the Soap Box podcast. We talked about games and RPGs and all this.
Hope you enjoyed it, and if you didn't, tell us about it.
Yeah. Cheers. Tell us that you don't like this.